This is the commentary for my world record in Spyro the Dragon 120%, set November 8th, 2024, a full year and a half since my last record, and in that time I've implemented some pretty crazy time saves, including one right here at the start of the game. But before I get into it, I just want to say thanks for watching. Okay, I'm about to do a trick to skip the first dragon of the game, Nestor, who normally forces you to listen to a very slow dialogue that's not even helpful. We are going to flop on top of him and get partially stuck to trigger a failsafe. The game will respawn us once we fall and touch Nestor at the same time, effectively interrupting his dialogue while still collecting him. That trick saves 16 seconds and was known about all the way back when I did my old record back in 2023. However, since then, the level of execution and consistency that I've gotten with that trick has gone from being pretty much unviable to like, I'm getting it every few tries now in runs. So it feels really good. Of course, it took many thousands of attempts to get to that point. And to be fair, I was being a little bit of a pussy by not going for it before. But you know what? I'm naked. Let's continue. The goal of this run is to collect all of the gems, dragons, and eggs from thieves, starting from a new file without cheat codes. There's a secret level that's unlocked at 100%, so timing ends once you finish this level to reach 120% and trigger the special ending. You'll see that I've actually massacred these fucking planes because I use my camera's shoulder buttons to trigger their cycles early. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of this game's mechanics and tricks, I want to give you guys some context with the history of this category. Ever since about 2013, the world record route for this category has actually stayed pretty consistent. Like that trick you guys saw at the start of the run, that was the biggest single time save found within the last decade. That means that runners for over 10 years have lowered the world record in this game by over 20 minutes through sheer execution and precision of consistency and movement alone. What I'm trying to say is that what this game lacks in out of bounds and tricky, glitchy movement, it makes up for in the sheer power of will of its players, trying to optimize every single turn, racing line, and enemy cycle in order to grab gems from as far away as possible to improve just the slightest bit of frames in between every second of gameplay. That's what running Spyro 1 120% is all about. And as we exit the first flight level, we start to see glimpses of this movement optimization in the homeworld as we move into the real first level of the game, Dark Hollow. And I mean, come on, this level is just a vibe. If you remember this one as a kid, leave a comment down below. Fun fact, these enemies only have blood on their swords in the North American version of this game. But to get back to the gameplay here, we're going to do a cool sequence break where we wall glide after jumping onto these little shelves here in order to skip going back up the stairs twice. Flaming and then jumping allows us to angle the flame downward to hit the enemy in box down here. We want to be gold Sparks, otherwise we'll accidentally hit a frog and then Sparks will get confused as he looks for butterflies. Coming up is the first out of bounds of the run, and this one only saves a couple seconds, but interestingly, skipping the vortex here means that the dragon head in the homeworld is going to remain closed for Toasty, so we'll have to find another way into him, which you'll see later. After a couple tricky jumps, we're able to flame this guy from behind, and if we clean up this room here quickly, then we'll be able to catch the second guy in the other hallway just as he's walking away from us. You may remember as a kid getting bounced by their fat bellies. When they're walking towards you, there's just no way to hit them, and that same thing is true here. I bear to the right in this hallway just to prolong his cycle a little bit longer. And I still just barely catch him. You can see how a fast player can really secure extra time saves through good enemy manipulation and cycles. And don't worry, it's not that complicated. Every enemy's AI in this game is purely determined by the camera's orientation of the player. So if you're approaching the enemy the same way every time, he'll give you the same cycle every time. This is true for every enemy, but unfortunately, we are only humans, so we can only be precise to a point, which means we're going to have varying enemy cycles because our camera isn't going to be exactly the same on every single run. But with that, we're finished with Dark Hollow and we're on to the next level, Stone Hill. Of course, not before satisfyingly destroying all 4 pacifist Norks in this homeworld. Does anyone remember playing around with these guys as a kid? I remember I would follow them as they'd run away into their little corners and shiver out of fear. Yeah, I was an evil kid, but they deserve to die. But anyways, this level is nice and big, which is going to give us plenty of time to talk about the gem homing mechanics, but not before we do a cool sequence break on this fountain where we abuse the roll jumping mechanic. This roll is meant to slide you off of the fountain, but if you hold X before hitting that little point, Spyro will automatically buffer a jump while rolling. It's a cool movement exploit, and interestingly, it's one of only 3 possible bufferable inputs in this game. That means you can press the button before the action happens. For pretty much everything in this game, you have to time your inputs correctly, or else Spyro simply won't jump, or charge, or flame, or skip dragons, or literally do anything. So your timing has to be impeccable with all of this movement. If you try to flame while charging, the flame won't come out. If you try to jump a frame before you land on a platform, you won't jump. So you can see how at a high level, trying to optimize your movement consists of playing some of the inputs a little safe and not trying to over-execute. And as you can imagine, when a run gets better and better with the pace, you tend to become more safe and hesitant as a player because you don't want to miss inputs like that. By the way, this thief kill here is a recent improvement to the route. Saving him for later like this buys us about a half second of time save. And yes, that is the level of time saves that we are implementing into this route now. A half second here, a second there, sometimes rerouting an entire level just for a couple of seconds. It really speaks to how optimized this game's route and run is. And I just want to reiterate, this game has been speedrun at a high level for over a decade now, especially this category in particular. So every little time save difference that you see between this and the previous world record, they're a big deal for a player like me who is so well muscle memorized with this game and this entire route. Sometimes people ask me if I have every gem in this game memorized, and yes, I do, but not only that, I have every input memorized on this route. I know exactly whether I'm going to jump or flame or charge or glide and for exactly how long. It really gets that specific at a point. Now, for a new player, that wouldn't be the case, but for me, making a 1 second time difference with a little thief strat, it really could be a make it or break it for me in my muscle memory. And with that, we are done with Stone Hill. I didn't even mention the gem homing mechanics, which I'll get into here in a minute. You can tell this is a very organized and professional speedrun commentary. So yeah, gems. How do they work? You'll see on those platforms there that I manually collect a lot of the gems because I'm able to grab them with Spyro's body before Sparks is able to see them. This is because I specifically charged out of the air for those gems, whereas if I was grounded, Sparks would be able to see them more easily. Some interesting quirks about Sparks' collection is that he can't see gems that are above or below Spyro. He also can't see gems around corners or walls, and also he can't grab more than 1 gem per frame. So even though this game does move at a smooth 30 FPS, you still have to slow down at times to grab big groups of 3 or more gems. Otherwise, Sparks will get overwhelmed and anxious and need to go, have some alone time. So he may be finicky, but at least Sparks is consistent, where there's no RNG to his collection. If you miss a gem, then there's always a reason for the way you approached it, from what angle, or if Sparks was overwhelmed by other gems or obstructed in one way or another. There's almost always an answer to why Sparks doesn't collect a gem. And that's great for us as speedrunners, because even if there's a section where Sparks looks like he should grab a gem and he doesn't, well, we can just tailor our movement in our route to go a little bit extra further, give him a little bit extra frames to grab gems that otherwise he wouldn't be able to see. This is so huge for the experience of a player who's been playing the game for many years like myself, and one thing that sets a player like me apart from a newer player is I just know what gems are easier for Sparks to grab on this route. Take this green gem after the thief, for example. I know to do an extra wide walk there to grab it, and in fact most players would actually run all the way up to that and then fully turn around to grab it. So these are where the real micro optimizations happen at a high world record level in this game. Also, I gotta point out that fucking box right there, that's also a bitch to hit. Generally, the camera's gonna get stuck on the corner, so you kind of have to do that movement a little blind. Just more awkward collection. It's really, this whole game is just a puzzle of awkward and weird collection and trying to find solves to each of those weird situations. Not only that, but being ready for recovery situations like that missed box earlier when they happen, so that a 1 second time save doesn't turn into a 3, 5, 10 second blunder of getting stuck in turnaround animations and barely missing the thing over and over and over with awkward PS1 camera bullshit. Ugh! Anyways, here's how we enter the Toasty portal without unlocking the dragon head that encloses it. Another wall glide where we shimmy against a wall while gliding in order to barely keep our height, and then landing on a couple of precise standable polygons. It basically allows us to get around the back of the head and enter from out of bounds. There's also a funny little piece of water that's invisible there that you can land in, and not to mention a bunch of different weird spots that you can bonk on the portal as well. And yes, you can bonk on portals in this game. It's bullshit. But anyways, you'll see that I made the first dog on that platform jump off the side of the level, which actually causes another failsafe where the dog immediately dies and the gem homes in. Notice that when I kill the dogs normally, the gem doesn't home in. So any way I can get a dog to auto die, it's gonna save a little time. And in fact, you technically can cause auto deaths on all of the dogs in this level. The community gold done by Schmokey Bro actually does pretty much that and saves over 3 seconds on my personal best Toasty gold. And while I'm at it, let me shout out a couple of players who have been really active at a high level in 120% lately. Piggy Bank has been recently grinding and improving the emulator world record and is on the cusp of a 122 despite loss of load time from the platform, which is just so insane. A lot of the time saves you see me do in this route are from him. Schmokey has been totally improving artisans to another level, as well as Days and Tuval, who have been doing a bunch of behind-the-scenes glitch hunting and routing, not just for 120%, but for Vortex and any percent. Adam the Dragon 22, who's been a second place contender for many years at this point. Tainu, who's been implementing small routing time saves, which are really cool to see. Also big shouts to Composer and Oddkara for making practice codes that are playable on a burnt disc on console, so that way we can use save states and respawn gems without having to, load a memory card every time, which is just a huge quality of life improvement for speedrunning this game and gave birth to a whole new era of individual level speedrunners. So if any of you are interested by this run or any other Spyro 1 speedruns, now is the best time to get into this game with all of these resources and people around helping and pushing the categories. It's not about world record. It's about chilling out, having fun, and vibing out to one of the most aesthetically pleasing and vibey games that's ever existed. And with that said, let's get into Peacekeepers. After this dragon, I'm going to flame and then charge into these enemies, and the gem is going to home in, where normally it would just pop into the air. This is a really cool emergent physics exploit of this game that we call simply flame charging. I'll explain more about flame charging later, but essentially we're just grabbing the gem out of its spawn point before it can pop into the air, allowing us to move more optimally. Worth noting is that every enemy type and box has its own spawn point for the gem, meaning that we need to use different spacing and timing for our flame charges to really get the most out of them. But like I said, I'll talk more about it later when it becomes relevant, and for now, let's just enjoy the bangin' music in Night Flight, our second flight level of 5 in this run. The remake of this level in Spyro Reignited Trilogy felt so off to me, and I think a lot of that was from the music. Like the organ, it felt like the most cheap GarageBand organ preset sound ever. Like you told someone to imagine what a rock organ sounded like, and then they spat back an AI-generated dystopian nightmare of Night Flight back to you. If you're interested, I actually made a whole video talking about my opinions on Reignited Trilogy, which frankly are probably more scathing than the game deserves, but I just like this original game so much. I just got the nostalgia glasses, what can I say? Anyways, right here is a cool strat where we do this tight turn to collect all the arches and light posts at the same time while using minimal movement and backtracking. Then, on the final lighthouse, we flame it as we crash into it, which cancels a flying up animation, which takes 4 seconds. I do that in every other flight level as well, so pay attention. At the end of those levels, I crash into a piece of solid collision on purpose. So now we're getting into Peacekeepers proper, where we're actually going to clean up some of the funkier sections of this homeworld, like the faraway key chest and the thief that's like way off at the pond over here. I flame, charge, and then jump in order to skip the thieves' egg collection animation, which you'll notice I did in Stone Hill as well while bonking on him. It saves like a second. And here we have another wall glide where we can barely reach the key chest room without having to do the long glide from the big perch, saving another couple seconds while doing some double spring chests, which is something that I do a lot in this run, sometimes unnecessarily. In fact, usually just short hopping and flaming those spring chests is gonna be about as fast as doing the double, but you know what? The double is just swag, so let me live. There's even a few triple spring chest collections that you can do in one jump in Wizard Peak and in this level coming up. Of course, I have to mention that fan chests can kill enemies after they break, and this one will fly up and kill the yellow enemy up above. In fact, once we get up there, we'll see nothing but a purple gem remaining where that yellow enemy once stood. And in fact, it's our first pink gem of the entire game, which brings up an interesting question. Is it pink or is it purple? Or are you like one of those people that calls it like indigo, violet, baby fucking whatever, purple bink? Anyways, I ascend these stairs by simply jumping and charging, but keep in mind, as mentioned earlier, there's no input buffer, so actually getting upstairs like that quickly is more precise than you would think. I have to be careful with these cacti because like corners, the collision for them can extend beyond their visual hitbox, so you have to really know when Spyro is going to bonk on seemingly nothing, and that's definitely one of those spots. We make our way to the secret area to collect Maximos, and you'll notice that I actually grab Maximos on the far side, so that way Spyro spends less time walking to the point where he explodes. I mean, the dragon explodes, not Spyro. If Spyro exploded, that would be very tragic. Anyways, after collecting the purple gem from earlier, I intentionally bonk on this fan chest, so that way Spyro is at an ideal spacing to make the gem home in from a flame charge. If you're too close to that box, the gem won't home in, and if you're too far, it won't home in. It's a very specific timing that, again, applies to almost every enemy and box in this game. You have to learn how to flame charge each one. Now coming up here, we're going to see the triple spring chest I was talking about earlier. Oh yeah, satisfying. And not for nothing, right after this we're going to have to jump on this little peg coming up here in order to do a spin jump to reach this sort of shelf early that you're meant to glide to later. That jump is really tricky, and a fun fact about it is that the spin doesn't actually give you any extra height. What we're really doing is abusing the charge mechanic against the underneath part of the ledge, so that way the game sort of clips us up there like a Tony Hawk kiss the rail type of grind. In fact, sometimes you'll see in tool-assisted speedruns, Spyro will be charging alongside a ledge like a Tony Hawk grind as sort of a weird exploit of the intersecting collision points. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen the silly % TAS of this game, go watch it. It's so good and totally opens your eyes to what is even remotely possible in this game in a way that a human speedrun like this will never be able to. Coming up to the end of this level, I do want to point out that I intentionally took damage on the firework chest there because it takes longer to flame it and wait for the sizzle before the explosion. You'll see me doing that on pretty much every firework chest in this game in one way or another. Intentional damage abuses like that actually add an interesting layer of Spark's health management to the run, where we need to route in certain fodder and certain death abuses in order to really maximize Sparks' health, so that way he's not running around trying to grab recovery, fodder, and generally losing new time. But with that, we now enter Cliff Town, which is certainly one of the trickier levels, especially with the updated routing that I do here, which is different than the old world record. For now though, we start with a standard sequence break where we jump around the back of the starting area. If anybody missed those gems as a kid, I don't blame you. They're almost impossible to find even casually. And here I'm going to flub just a little bit grabbing this red gem out of the air, but luckily I'm able to recover a fodder without missing the second gem as a result of that very lucky recovery there. Here's where the alternate routing is supposed to begin. I try to jump over to the firework roof and then fail miserably, forcing myself into about a 5-6 second time loss, rerouting the entire level to the old route. And literally at a moment's notice, the entire level's route is different now. And this is like the important sharp recovery you need to have in order to get high level runs in this game. The more tools you have under your belt, the more alternate routings and weird backup strategies you have in the dark anals of your head, then the better off you're going to be in situations like this. So clearly unfazed, I continue to clean up everything very respectably, hitting pretty much every flame charge and gem grab out of the air, which again, after making a mistake like that, is hard to keep your composure, especially when you're on a good pace, and you'll see that especially later in the run, where sometimes I start to get a little bit more hesitant, and my recoveries don't quite get to be as clean as a result of just the added pressure. Now, I don't want to spoil what happens in the final level, but let's just say the run could have been like 10 seconds faster if it weren't for some nervous recoveries in Nasty's loot. But for now, we're still early on, we're still green, ahead of world record on my splits, And I gotta give a quick shout to these birds here who are particularly weird with their movement. Your camera has to be very precise as you approach them in order to get them to fly the correct way to get you to save an extra 2 or 3 seconds. I unfortunately got a couple of weird ones here, but it was fine. Again, just keeping the composure, kind of in recovery mode still, you can possibly tell by the gameplay. Another thing I want to point out here is I do a lot of jump charging, which is not only useful for jumping down tall areas like this, but also for moving out of a standstill optimally. Keep in mind, a jump charge and a charge jump are 2 different things in this game, where a jump charge is a empty jump and then on the first frame pressing square to charge immediately at full speed, and then a charge jump is pressing square and X simultaneously to do a charging jump. One is slightly faster than the other, but they both get you up to about max speed around the same time. What you don't want to do in this game is just press square from a standstill, because Spyro will take time to accelerate up to full speed with his charge. So we want to be either jump charging or charge jumping. And we'll talk about that more later, but for now, look at this crazy bonk right here on fucking nothing, dude. I swear to God, I was trying to grab those gems as they were popping out of their spawn point. Note that I actually killed all 3 of the enemies before that cannon early, which is kind of rare and allowed me to go for that strat, but in my haste, I ended up double bonking and wasting a sparks and some time. So just another example of like when things start going well, you tend to start over executing and you get punished as a result of that in this game. So yeah, that was probably the biggest single time loss in the run so far, alongside the Clifftown reroute. Between those 2 things, we're probably approaching 10 seconds of possible time save just up to this point in the run. You'll see I'm just barreling through the enemies in this level, which is kind of funny because we are able to recover any possible gems I miss here later, so the real incentive is to just get through this area as quickly as possible and grab whatever you miss after. It's just pure chaos at this first half of the level, and then as we get into the Shemp fight after this tower here, things start to mellow out and we get more time to breathe, but it's just kind of a funny dichotomy in this level, going from all these enemies just dying like every second to the big boy kind of slowing things down. And here he is, man, Dr. Cool. I actually do a little manipulation on him on this first cycle so that way he doesn't run around as much. You have to awkwardly like wait for him to trigger before you can go for the quickest version of these hits. So you'll see on the 3rd and final cycle here, I kind of wait a beat and then go for the quick kill. That skips him doing his whole spinny attack that you have to jump over, saving about a second. And yeah, I'm just being careful not to be too hasty on these boxes descending down to the lower level before hitting a beautiful flame charge jump on this mama. If you miss any of those gems, it's kind of like run over because the recovery is so bad. So while I have a moment here, I just want to ask, how did you guys find out about this game? Like, was this a childhood classic for you, or is it something you're just starting to unearth now in your later, aging gamer years? I'm genuinely curious about it. Leave a comment down below and feel free to hit me with any of your history or personal experience with the game. And if you already left a comment earlier and you have to like edit it, I'm sorry. If I see that, I will leave you a heart. Don't worry, I got you. Anyways, this is one of my favorite levels here, Ice Cavern. There's something that just hits differently about it, like S-tier vibes, as well as just being a really interesting level to execute in the speedrun. So let's see exactly why that is. We start by touching this dragon in such a way that we collect the far red gem there, which is actually way harder than it looks. And then we go for this yellow gem before executing the first side roll of the run, which there are very few places where that is viable in this route and not faster to just jump and charge and turn. So I will definitely be sure to shout those out as they happen. There's only a handful of them in the entire route. This dragon you can actually save for later, which I did in the old world record, but it was actually found out that that's not even faster, and in fact it's much riskier to leave this dragon for later, because if you take a death, you're going to naturally be sent further back. And as you can imagine, with some of these precariously hasty jumps over voids that are now starting to emerge, that death is becoming more and more of an imminent factor in exchange for small movement errors. You have to bonk on these big metal guys to kill them, but interestingly, the direction you hit them can determine how quickly the gem pops out, as well as the direction it pops out, so we may actually opt to hit these guys a little bit more slowly, so that way the gem pops out in a way that's more favorable to us. Of course, we hit all of those poles right there while side-swiping them and not bonking onto them in order to get their gems down more quickly and efficiently. And we do a really cool little jump up the side of this little shelf here that you're not supposed to barely be able to hit. Again, with that sort of Tony Hawk shimmy along the ledge as we're jumping up. So yeah, really cool movement in that area. And we continue to push the movement by charging down against this wall so we can grab both of those red gems without having to go back for them later. Then, as we clean up this room right here, we kind of squeeze around these little ledges, which, by the way, these corners can bonk you so easily as you're going kind of outside and back into the interior area. Super annoying spot to miss gems because it's just so easy in a place like that. But yeah, now we're properly beginning the backtrack through the entire level here, which is going to force us to go around the front side of the dragons, again shortening Spyro's walk cycle before they erupt and bust. As you can imagine, fighting the camera is super weird here with having to turn around after the dragon, so you really have to trust in your off-screen movement to hit enemies in boxes like this. No fear in this room, we charge right along the ledges to grab these gems as optimally as possible before bonking on this dude, and yes, this dude can actually knock you down into the void if you try to over-optimize him, so just be careful about that. You can really see the amount of flame charging into turnarounds that I have to do, and optimizing those with confident jumps away, knowing that the gem is going to collect when you do a flame charge, really makes a huge difference in terms of saving time in this section of the level, and in fact many parts of the run. So yeah, that was a super clean ice cavern, and in fact I hit a gold split on that one, which to those who don't know means it's supposed to be the best I've ever done that level. Well, in my case that's kind of a scam because I don't really keep good track of my golds or save them, so it could be the best I've ever done it could not. Let's just go with that it's the best I've ever done it, alright? Let's move on to Magic Crafters after killing these 3 fucking super annoying guys here and keep this run moving. And hey, this is normally where I would be like and subscribe, but really what you should do is go into my Discord linked below and turn on stream notifications. I grind this game every day on both my YouTube and Twitch channel, so if you're not following me, turn on the bell, check the Discord, join the notification squad. I appreciate all of that because the funnest part of this grind is being able to share in it with you guys and to just experience the intensity, the highs and lows all together, so feel free to tune in. And that actually brings me to another interesting question, which is, how long do I plan to keep running this? Well, for now, all I can say is that as of late 2024, I'm going to be grinding this game to get the lowest possible 120 that I can get in this game. And truth be told, if and when I get close enough to it, I might just go for the 119. I'm not committing to it yet, but I am absolutely committing to continuing this world record grind because you guys are going to see as this run continues that there is room for improvement, and there's no doubt about it. So I want to make this run as great as it can be for me, and I still feel like I still have a few PBs left in me before I can really call it like my crown jewel achievement, you know, and move on to, you know, playing Simpsons Hit and Run or something. I'm just kidding. I'm never going to learn that. Anyways, here we are in Alpine Ridge, and this is the first level where platform cycles start to become an important factor. The platforms, as you can see, like the stairs and the moving walls, are controlled by the druid enemies, which, as we know from earlier, are controlled by your camera's approach to them. So essentially, the speed at which I'm playing the level is going to determine the speed of the cycles. So here, I got the optimal cycle, but since the wizard is walking towards the druid, we have to hit the wizard first when playing this level optimally. Otherwise, the druid lifts his platform before you can reach him, as I'm sure many of you have experienced in Magic Crafters before. Here, we actually can't flame charge these enemies, so we have to flame them and wait for their gems to pop up and hit the ground before we collect them. Then, after a cheeky side roll during the flames cooldown, we barely miss this druid right here, which he's such a fucking asshole. This guy is so easy to miss because of the weird oblong circle that he runs in very awkwardly at varying speeds. Lots of enemies, when you miss them, are kind of like that, where they'll start running in circles and they become even harder to hit as a result of that. So yeah, classic situation there. And yeah, here I should have just charged onto this platform. I thought I was being big brain by jumping and gliding, which actually would have been great if he was lifting the platform, but since he had just lowered it, I ended up gliding too far before he could lift it back up again. But yeah, going high there is actually a pretty good strat normally. I was just going too fast on this run for it to make any sense. Just suffering from success, really. I have to grab this fodder since I took some extra damage in the Peacekeeper's homeworld earlier before Dr. Shemp. That's having implications all the way until now because I take 2 damage abuses in this level. Therefore, if I'm not gold sparks, then blue, then green, I'll be sparksless otherwise. So yeah, that was very much a tactical recovery fodder. pay attention to the turn jump charge here before jumping and gliding to this one polygon of the wall which has no collision, allowing us to hit the thief and box from out of bounds and get started on like the little chase, I guess. Well, since we already killed the thief, we just grab all the gems here and then keep it moving. At least we get to appreciate the beautiful skybox in this level, which, how gorgeous are those, right? I actually did an entire interview with the skybox designer of Spyro 2, which you can see on my YouTube channel. This damage abuse is so scary right here, because if you don't hit that box exactly right, it will knock you off the edge, and I have lost many hundreds of runs to that before. So you can see with a couple sloppy moments in that level that I am losing a few seconds, and this is only going to get worse as I go through Magic Crafters, because world record before this was so strong in Magic Crafters, and in fact this is one of the hardest homeworlds to really perfect. And that's in part thanks to these insane supercharges where I'm bouncing off the wall and zigzagging through the air to make sure I hit as many enemies and collectibles as possible. These supercharges are going to get even crazier as we progress through High Caves and Wizard Peak, the next 2 levels. So let's begin. We start by grabbing these 3 gems before breaking away to the left, which may seem odd, but it's so that we can have a clean supercharge later in the level. We're planning on supercharging through basically every spider here. Now the flame charges on these enemies are not easy, and I have to nail every single one without bonking on the fat hitboxes of some of these wizards. If I bonk at all, it'll throw off the cycles for not just these platforms coming up, but the spider cycles behind me. Luckily, we get a favorable cycle and proceed to clean up the rest of the gems inside this area, unfortunately missing a box awkwardly, but luckily that's not having any implications for any of the enemies later in the level. Similarly to Ice Cavern, I used to skip this dragon in favor of backtracking for it later. Luckily, it doesn't really make any time difference, so we play it safe. However, we don't play it safe on this supercharge ramp where I land perfectly at the bottom of it to have just enough speed to make it up that hill right there and charge through all 3 firework chests, sparing me their exploding animations or a damage abuse. So chilling with gold sparks here, we finish cleaning up until the thief section here, and actually this thief is probably one of the hardest in the game to get the quick kill on. You really have to get the camera sort of janked on the edge of the area as you come in so as not to trigger him too early, but even then, sometimes he just gets away from you like that, but we just hit another flame charge to clean him up, losing us about a second. Now here comes one of the hardest extended supercharges in the whole game to collect all of the spiders, and it's called Bike Caves, named after a Skype emote, most likely in reference to the fact that I'm Lance Armstronging my way through these fucking spiders like it's nothing, and barely making it through the anus corridors while collecting enemies and all of the gems in such a way that I managed to catch these last 2 spiders here at the end of the charge on an ideal cycle, which is why we needed to not bonk earlier in the level. So I'm breathing a sigh of relief at this point, getting through one of the first of many mid-game run killers. We're gonna have more weird supercharges like this in Wizard Peak, so don't worry, the fun isn't over yet, but at least I can soak in the congrats and the hype from my chat after hitting that to kind of give me a second wind into this next section of the run here. The rest of this level is a pretty simple cleanup, a lot of high value gems inside of this little tunnel area here, and just some tricky movement to get around the tunnels from side to side, but besides that, we basically catch up to this last thief here at the end of the level in order to get a quick kill on him using the fan. Like we used it to kill an enemy earlier in Dry Canyon, we used it to kill the thief here while finishing up the others, and that's High Caves. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the fun doesn't stop here because now we're going to do an oddly precise supercharge through these 3 enemies. If we happen to hit the druid on the wrong side, what'll happen is he'll lift his platform in front of him as we're supercharging over it, which will cancel our supercharge due to the change in height collision. So more often than not, you actually just get your supercharge canceled there for no reason. So movement in that homeworld is very precise, and I always am like, nice whenever I hit those without losing supercharge. Now let's talk about Wizard Peak. We start the level by going off to the left sort of secret route to collect all of the gems upstairs. And this is easy enough, but we don't actually do the casual cleanup where we're supposed to jump from up here and go and grab all the big wizards and then climb back up. That shit is slow, and what we're going to do instead is hop down here and grab this big wizard, which actually spawns all of the smaller troll fat guys early, so that way we can go through the downstairs area, and once we get to the faraway room with the guy that we were supposed to jump to earlier, we're going to do a cool little trick on him. Check this out. And just look at the shock on that wizard as I do that. He's like, what the hell, man? How did you do that? Well, what I did was I got stuck inside of the smaller green wizard as he was doing his animation. And because I was inside of his hitbox for a moment, the game ejected me out. And we call that wizard proxy. I'm going to be doing another one of those later on in the run. But if you want to see a category that does a lot of movement like that, be sure to check out Vortex in this game. Now here I grab the gems through the wall using Supercharge, which is why I don't grab the spring chests with Supercharge. This way I can do a much faster death abuse on the thief here in order to respawn and clean up the rest of the gems. A very special fuck you to this second wizard here who sometimes doesn't give you his gem because of his animation. He's the only enemy in the game that's like that, and he's why I route through him twice, just for good measure. We're able to have enough speed on this jump because I hit the top of the arrows with enough speed out of the air to build momentum early. Casually, you're supposed to go down 2 supercharge ramps in order to have enough speed for that jump, but because we're doing that early momentum abuse by landing at the tippy top of the arrow ramp, you'll see that we have more speed than we're supposed to have, and we abuse that later in treetops as well. I've seen people get visibly upset in my chat when they realize you don't have to do 3 circuits all the way around treetops to build speed, but rather you can just abuse the momentum from one charge. But we'll get there in a bit. For now, let's appreciate the last triple spring chest in the run that I beautifully nail. I mean, there's just something about a triple spring chest that's satisfying. Oh yeah. And this dragon is really funny because he actually tells you about the stones to unlock Sunny Flight at the beginning of the game, and if you haven't unlocked that level yet, now the stones will actually make noise when you go back to them. Try it on your own playthrough. Or don't, that's fine too. I'm not here to tell you how to play this game or live your life. God knows, if I'd have listened to everyone who told me how to live my life, I wouldn't be playing this game for 5 hours a day. By the way, I touch this dragon through the portal as I enter it. That way he's triggered and collected when I exit the level. But yeah, I definitely have put in a lot of hours into this game, and I don't think I would be the same person if not for the over 10,000 hours I have just streamed doing speedruns of Spyro 1. You know, I think a lot of people get the impression that they can't catch up to me or that like I'm some dominant force that can't be reckoned with. But I think if you look at this gameplay, you'll see that it's not perfect, and I personally feel like I have a very long way to go before I reach the human limit in this game. Honestly, I don't even know if I'll ever get there, and I've been speedrunning this one category for 11 years. So don't take that as a sign of you can't catch up. Take that as an example of there is so much more that you can do to push this far beyond anywhere that I could even conceive. This is truly a limitless speedrun. There is no theoretical limit. It's always changing, always evolving with time and new records and PBs. So just have fun with it and enjoy the run and see what happens next, basically. That's all you can do, and that's all I've been doing this entire time. So yeah, that was a pretty introspective flight level, but I think it was a good use of our time. We're making our way into the final level of Magic Crafters, Blowhard. Did you know that if you game over in any of the Magic Crafters levels, it sends you to the beginning of the homeworld, but in later homeworlds you just spawn in front of the portal? I mean, that's kind of fucked because the Magic Crafters homeworld starts as far away from Blowhard as physically possible. Gaming over just adds insult to injury. Fuck this game. Just kidding. Actually, this level is pretty interesting because I've incorporated a new strat since my last record, where I actually charge into that firework chest, so that way I can catch a quicker cycle on the platforms coming up after the first Blowhard hit. Of course, zigzagging through all of these enemies can add a lot of variance to your pace, so unfortunately I don't quite catch the ideal platform cycle here, but it's better to wait because even if I'd have done the old strat, I would still be on a similar cycle anyways. Now here I anticipate the platform movement coming towards me, so that way I adjust accordingly, again being so in tune with these enemy cycles as I progress through the entire level. We have to aim high on Blowhard because the only active part of his hitbox is that little yellow beard part of him. I don't know, esophagus? I don't know what the hell that is. So anyways, we take a little damage abuse here, clean up the double chest, and finish the final hit on Blowhard before we actually roll into his gems so that way they don't scatter across that little arena there. And that is the end of Magic Crafters. Well, after this little homeworld section where we kill a wizard and then freeze it in time by talking to the balloonist, seeing it as we float away from him sparingly. Goodbye, little squished wizards. I never knew you. So anyways, here's a new strat where if we go quick, we can barely reach this enemy in time to flame charge him and catch the second one before they both activate their electric pad. It was just assumed for a decade that you could not reach those guys in time in this category, but Piggy proved us otherwise. Thanks, Piggy. And after another quick jump charge out of the dragon, I managed to hit this fade back double spring chest, which to be fair is about as fast as collecting them normally, but you know, I need these double spring chests in the same way that my 5th grade teacher needed Diet Coke just to get through the day. It's not that it's necessary, it's just satisfying. Anyways, this is another level where every movement counts. If I bonk once in this first half of the level, then that will give me a suboptimal cycle on the charge pads later in the level. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm just going to spoil it for you. I did it pretty well and I caught the good cycle. I'm sorry, I just couldn't contain myself. I mean, it is world record, so I figure I'm not like surprising too many people with that revelation, but still, it's definitely difficult to hit all of these enemies and flame charges and double spring chests and double flame charges all back to back without fucking up once. I mean, the pressure really mounts in a level like this, and you can feel it at this point in the run, especially when you're ahead of record like me. So here's the charge pads I was talking about, but before following their cycle, I'm going to clean up all of the fireworks and stuff first. I do a quick wall glide before skipping a stair to get up to these reds early. Then we get to see the second optimal roll in the run, which is just so beautiful. I mean, it's like seeing a shooting star or something like that. But of course we reach the end of these firework chests just as they explode, and you can see I am perfectly ready to hop down to the charge pads now, where I'll catch up with all of the rest of these gems, hopefully not missing a single one, before getting as far forward on these pads as possible before they deactivate, setting us up nicely for the following one. So you can see now how the tone has really shifted by this point in the run, from just trying to optimize things to literally trying not to fuck everything up. I mean, the pressure just mounts and mounts with each level and each homeworld. I really believe this game has a steady difficulty incline that is relevant in casual playthroughs just as much as it is in speedrunning, and at this point, the pressure is as intense as it's ever been. But now that we're past all of the major cycles, we just have to clean up the rest of this big tower here before jumping down and getting the last of the final gems in this level. I actually sideswiped that spring chest by accident, which ended up being kind of a nice recovery actually, but it all happened so quickly I had no idea what the fuck just happened anyways. But overall, that was a good terrace village and I can't complain. Now here in the homeworld, I'm going to jump in the lava intentionally to take invincibility frames so I can sideswipe the firework chests and hit them all in one go. Otherwise, I would have to tank the damage animation and possibly take 2 hits of damage there, and it would just be a lot more awkward movement if I didn't do it that way. Now these fan chests here are actually theoretically faster to do after Wild Flight instead of before like I'm doing here. However, it's so hard to get the triple flame charge on both of them coming after the level that I opt to do it before in exchange for like a second or two of movement. It's an interesting example of sub-optimization in favor of consistency, which of course you'll see more of later on in the run as of course the pressure mounts and we just want to not lose the run basically. And my previous record actually, in my opinion, played it too safe in the late game, especially in levels like Lofty and Jock. I really wanted to keep doing this grind so I could prove to myself that I don't have to play things safe in Dreamweavers and Nasty's World and play like a little bitch. Nah, man, I want to fucking send this shit, man. Actually just get the run, you know, and just go all the way balls to the wall. If I lose my run spectacularly, then so be it, you know? So there's definitely a bit of ego and bravado to different sorts of levels of consistency and sub-optimization like that, but that's just a line you gotta toe as a player, I suppose. Anyways, I totally glossed over the sick plane turnaround strat in that level, but I mean, you saw it. I just bonked into a wall in order to get all the planes without having to go through the tunnels all the way, so yeah, that's that strat. I mean, I say it like it's nothing, but I've lost runs to all of these levels multiple dozens of times. So if I say something's hard or it's easy or whatever, just know that there are many runs in the grave to show for that. And in honor of digging runs into a shallow grave, what better level than Misty Bog for us to enter? This level historically was one of the most hated amongst 120 runners because of the attack frogs and the shrubs that go after you. These enemies are some of the worst in the game, but with time I've found consistency with some of them, and this level has begun to be a bit more not just optimized, but in my opinion consistent as well. So let's see why that is. And here are the bitches of the hour right here. The way you approach these attack frogs determines what formation they end up going into. So in this case, I got kind of a suboptimal one, but nothing I wasn't used to. However, the last two frogs were in an awkwardly close position, so I had to flame charge one and hope that I collected the second one. You can see he barely almost got me with his tongue, but I got lucky hitting him a frame before his attack would have connected. I'll be saving those enemies for a later cleanup, so now I can just jump down this tree stump and hopefully go for a double spring chest. I unfortunately got cucked by the box there. It's kind of a funny quirk. If you hit a box from too high up, it won't home in because you're not low enough down to where the gem spawns from. And by funny quirk, I mean it's fucking infuriating. Just like these enemies right here, who luckily all died at once, but still awkwardly body blocked me from being able to collect the gems efficiently. That's normally what happens there. I have to time the flame charges on these hogs down to the frame because they're moving targets, and flame charges are distance dependent. So if I flame charge even a frame or two off, I probably won't get the gem to home in. But luckily I did get them there, and now we can begin our backtrack back to the main area of the level. These charge jumps are way less forgiving than they look, and these platforms here will definitely bonk you even though you're clearly above them when you charge. I hit my trademark swaggy double spring chest before moving back onto the main area of the level. Has anyone ever died around this part and then just got teleported back down to the bottom area with nothing around you, just completely empty, barren nothingness with a long road to get back to the main area? It's sort of like lonely and dark when that happens, don't you think? Like, these levels take on a whole different vibe once everything's collected and there's nothing left. They're so open and barren. It's like you feel like you're not supposed to be there. It's like one of those liminal back rooms kind of vibes. Maybe that's part of what pushed me to speedrun in the first place. Like, having all of the gems and shit in the level just feels a lot more inviting. I don't know. But what I do know is that this room has the highest density of enemies in the entire game, and it's infamous for causing unavoidable damage to even the best of players. I, of course, am better than the best and managed to escape unscathed, but that was mostly because I avoided doing any weird movement entering the room, so the enemy cycles hadn't fully completed by the time I had already reached the other side of it. If you bonk or anything like that leading up into that room, then the enemies are pretty much guaranteed to hit you. That room is also another example of a tactical sub-optimization like we were talking about earlier. It's actually faster to complete that room counterclockwise instead of clockwise like we did. But of course, if you do that, you're just asking to get hit, so save yourself the trouble and ignore that 1 second time save. Anyways, hopefully I distracted you enough from that horrible homeworld movement to prime you for this next amazing level, Treetops. This is another big supercharge level, and as alluded to earlier, we're not going to be doing as much supercharging as you might casually think when you play this game, kind of going all around the whole level. No, here we're just mostly focusing on flame charging the monkeys, grabbing the key, flaming some more monkeys, and then flame charging another group of monkeys before I flame charge some monkeys before the fan chest. You know, they should just call this level Monkey Madness. Fuck, now I'm having RuneScape flashbacks. Please help me, God. Anyways, this dragon's important because we death abuse back to him later. Now here's the first of 4 supercharges in this level. I actually managed to hit the big monkey with one of the fan chests, which I normally never do, and in my excitement I actually miss a flame charge on one of the smaller monkeys. On this next supercharge I collect all of the gems while hitting the strong box, but I don't visually confirm every single gem was collected, so I pause to make sure I have them all before death abusing. Now this next supercharge is going to piss some of you guys off, because you can just delay your jump off the end of this ramp in order to make it all the way to the island early. The developers definitely did not intend for that, and I don't think some of you guys really even ever figured this out as kids, so yeah, sorry to shit on your childhood or whatever. Anyways, we get the first of 2 thieves here before getting a beautiful gliding view of the level. I mean, what a gorgeous skybox. We get this big row of boxes in one go, being careful not to have the same thing happen like in Bog where you hit them too high up and the gem doesn't home in. That happens a lot there. We trigger the second thief from behind here, and interestingly you can actually quick kill him there, but it requires suboptimal movement compared to just killing him later, which is what we're gonna do. You can't hide forever, you little red son of a bitch. And here I fully jump and then charge onto the ramp in order to gain a little bit extra speed so that way I don't have to jump off the end of the ramp, saving me hang time. I implement a recent time save found by Composer where you can just jump after that strong chest instead of trying to be a hero and charge all the way down into the spring chest, which almost always results in a bonk. And here I bump off the angled wall to get to the upper level early with some extra height. I continue my supercharge all the way around until I get to the final part where I jump down and clean up the last few gems. You might be wondering why pause and exit instead of going through the return home vortex, which is right there, and the answer to that is that they're basically the same. Now here we come up to Metalhead where we have another potential run killing moment, and this is going to be one of the only out of bounds enemy squeezes that I get in this game using the monkey at the very start, so let's see how that goes. Oh, that was perfect. You know, you have to sideswipe that monkey pointing into the corner, and the hard part about that strat is that the monkey will sometimes get into the corner before you do, or you get into the corner but don't get the monkey quite all the way in there. So I'm so glad to get that dank mank right in his place and squeeze through the corner like your mother's butt. You know, I've been struggling with that strat a lot lately, and every time I miss it, I lose 10 seconds deep into the run on a good pace. Now here, I wasn't sure if I collected the red gem down in the corner that I dropped down to, so I did this awkward bad movement to try to move the camera and see it, but in doing that, I fucked up those two spring chests and killed the satisfying trademark double that I'm so famous for at this point. I mean, truly, those double spring chests are not for the weak or hesitant in this game. And now here we're cleaning up the last few gems before approaching the Metalhead fight, and I'm just going to be completely 100% for real with you guys right now. This fight is like basically a glorified auto-scroller. It's very boring, and it can actually fuck you over in more ways than one. And that's mostly because of the little monkeys that he throws. If you kill him a little slowly here, then you'll actually kill one of the enemies as it's rolling away from you, causing the gem to spawn in the very middle of the room, way backtracked from where you want to be at this part here. So despite an awkward corner stuck, we do get that gem in a good spot and keep it moving into the second phase, where I will now beatbox along to the pylon destruction. Here we go. Thank you, thank you. That's actually the most music I've produced since getting my arts degree in college. But despite that, I hope to one day do musical street performance with the previous world record holder of this category, Saboom. And yes, I am being dead serious about that. But musical aspirations aside, I managed to escape from Metalhead within 1 second of the world record, and I'll just skip through the Beastmaker's homeworld here and just let you know that it went well, and we are moving into Dreamweavers. Within a second of world record pace, the pressure is now officially on. If it wasn't on before, it's on now. But of course, Dreamweavers is infamous for having some of the hardest, most inconsistent levels in this entire game, namely Lofty Castle, which is going to be coming up later. But for now, we have to get through this homeworld and just keep it together. You can see already that I'm struggling with one of the flame charges on this enemy. And as I approach this dragon, I try to flame the Jester so that way I can start his timer and go to the platform early. Unfortunately, after the dragon, I get fucking pushed by one of the mushrooms here. I mean, like, dude, can it be worse timing? I mean, that's so rare, but fodder movement, unlike enemy movement, is not in my control. It's RNG, so you just gotta fucking swallow that and keep it moving into Haunted Towers here, where we're gonna be blasting through all of these enemies, leaving some gems for later on in the cleanup, before kissing this beautiful, voluptuous fairy and making a mad dash race to the first metal door of the level. Normally you're intended to kiss another fairy before flaming this door coming up, but we're just going to go straight there while blowing up as much shit as possible. That mushroom almost got in my way, but we got off scot-free just in time to make it to the door and go for Wizard Proxy number 2, where we squeeze between the wall and the wizard to get shot up into the air and make it to the secret area early without having to use Supercharge, saving us about 10 seconds. On very rare occasion, that proxy can actually send you above the castle walls and allow you to glide out of bounds to this stair area early, saving another additional 10 seconds. This fairy is special because she's gold like my splits and hot like your tits. Okay, maybe not, but she does give you infinite super flame, which the other fairies here don't, so she's definitely a bad bitch for that. Like, she's definitely on her cunty era, you know, she doesn't need no one to come up to her tower and save her, but if you do want to come up there, she'll give you a little kiss on the lips, you know? Fuck off, get right out of here, one night stand status, like, she doesn't give a fuck, man. What a strong and empowered woman. Anyways, we clean up the last of the gems in this area with a pretty standard damage abuse on this firework chest, before hopping down the hole down to the normal area of the level. This next room is pretty cool because it's just a treasure room, like hell yeah, let me get that. And then as I emerge, I bonk into the fucking nothingness of the next room. I mean, it just goes to show how annoying the corner collision is in this game. You will bonk on nothing more than you ever bonked on something in this game. And you can see that I actually miss a few of the flame charges from these metal guys here, but you gotta give me some credit because these metal guys are some of the hardest enemies to intentionally flame charge in the entire game. This is because their gem actually spawns way above the ground, which is why you'll see me oftentimes jumping before flame charging them. And now here we've made it back to the main part of the level, where I actually missed the flame charge on this box somehow. Like, I don't even know how that happened. I remember being distinctly very frustrated by that because it was an awkward recovery, and I was like certain that I was gonna get that. I don't know, sometimes the game just says no. That's just one of those moments. And it was like extra frustrating considering all of the other little time losses in the home world and the missed flame charges in the section before that. On top of that, it's just like, oh my god, how much time am I going to be losing here? I didn't even know at this point. Not to mention this firework chest that I tried to hit and apparently missed. So, time losses on time losses. They're definitely adding up, but I'm trying to keep it as smooth as possible with these recoveries to minimize the time loss as much as possible. We're coming up to the end of the level here, so let's see what the damage is. Yeah, about 9 seconds lost there. That's the biggest deficit we've had against world record in the entire run so far. But no time to ruminate. We have to do the death abuse route here to head back over to Dark Passage. Now, there's a whole thing about my life count that I could go into, but just suffice to say, I needed to take that death abuse so that way I can save time on a trick at the end, which I'll explain when we get there. That, along with my Sparks level, is the reason why I didn't go for a faster wall glide route in the home world instead of a death abuse. Anyways, it doesn't matter. What matters now is getting a clean Dark Passage, the preamble to Lofty Castle. This level isn't too bad. I do of course go for these double spring chests, but I'm also trying to manipulate the turtles in such a way that they don't shoot me before I hit them. So a lot of my movement is based around that, as well as not letting the big red devil dogs eat me alive. I got mega unlucky with this metal chest. The nerves are really starting to show that I missed the backup even, so not boding well, especially for being behind at this point, but you gotta just keep going, god damn it, come on. You can't think about it, you know? You gotta be like the dog sitting in a burning house meme, like, this is fine, I'm fine, just keep playing, be in the moment. Like a guy from the suburbs doing yoga in short shorts. Channel that. After dispatching these enemies, we actually want to jump down to the secret lower level of this area, unlocking the entire second half of the level, which is just so insane how well hidden that is, but anyway, we approach these turtles from the right center in order to hit them both without one of them hitting us. It's a very specific approach manipulation. We actually managed to dodge a Sparks here, which is good for this section but may have implications in the upstairs area coming up. Without gold Sparks, we're basically at the mercy of the mushrooms in this level. If they want to take Sparks from us for a second so that he can chase down a butterfly, they can and will do that. But luckily they didn't troll me here despite some awkward misses, and were able to clean up and recover nicely. This room is easier than it looks. As long as you just charge straight for the turtles here, they won't hit you. But this red guy does have some randomness with how he drops the gem, if you can grab it early or not. So I got a little screwed there, and of course I was extra careful not to miss any of the boxes or dogs, gems, whatever down there. Obviously I want to just keep it together best as possible. But still not too nervous to go for a charge jump out of the dragon before descending to this final room down here, where we have to be so fucking careful, it's crazy. If we take damage down here, that's going to have massive implications for my homeworld and lofty strategies, which can cost 5+ seconds if I'm not careful. But we get out unscathed as I proceed to walk on eggshells to collect these red gems here somewhat awkwardly, really making sure that I hit the firework with my flame. It's very easy to miss that, and if you jump off without that firework being set, you have to run through the whole area all over again. So definitely don't want to throw my run to that today. I can see that I'm on an unfavorable cycle on this turtle, no doubt thanks to my shaky movement, but I just flame the jester and get the hell out of there. But of course, we're not out of the woods yet. We never are. We're going to be doing one of the hardest homeworld segments in the entire game, partially because of a so-called glitch that can happen on the cannon, where it doesn't even lock on to the enemies. So I have to make sure to run through this area in such a way that I don't trigger fodder on the other side of the wall to accidentally cause the cannon to lock onto them. And yes, that is a real thing that can happen, and has killed many world records and PBs before this one. Sometimes you just need a sprinkling of luck to get through this shit. So let's see how the cannon goes. Oh, beautiful. When I see that second shot lock onto the guy, I know I'm in the fucking money there, dude. When that shot doesn't lock on, your heart drops, but when it does, oh my god, life is good. Especially with gold sparks here. We're able to flame these jesters and then take a damage abuse on this firework chest here in order to have blue sparks going into lofty, which is going to be important after this flight level. But not just any flight level, this is icy. I'm just kidding, this is like every other flight level. So in honor of its auto-scrolly nature, we're going to talk a little bit about where my head's at this current point in the run, and how I'm feeling kind of emotionally. Well, what do you think? I'm shitting my pants, man, but it's not that bad. It doesn't get that bad until after you get a good lofty, and I think now is a good time for me to kind of prime you guys and get ready for this next level. In my previous world record, I took Lofty Castle, the next level, very safely, too safely, and ended up losing about 15 seconds compared to an optimal lofty. In this run, we're going to be going for an optimal lofty, which is an entire reroute of the supercharge section. Now that means that it's very likely for me to fail the supercharge and lose all of the time and then some, basically killing my run. So the nerves at this point in the run aren't crazy, but it's really all gonna come down to Lofty Castle, as it does. You know, there was a time where I was like, oh, I could play Lofty safe, it's fine. Well, guess what? It's the year 2024, and we are fucking sending it in that level, and it's just, the whole run kind of changes at that point. So if anything, I'm kind of soaking in these last few moments of relaxation and some degree of chillness before things really start to amp up and the adrenaline starts really pumping through my body. So we start this level by flaming the turkey and cleaning up the gems as quickly as possible. As I get up to the second level, I'm playing hasty to catch these cycles, but then that catches up with me as I miss a jump. A very important jump right there, but luckily there was no void underneath me, so I could just easily recover it for like a 2-3 second time loss and keep it moving. Now we're going to fully clean up this island with a damage abuse, which is why I needed the blue sparks, so that I can actually get another mushroom here to prepare for another damage abuse where I could potentially accidentally take 2 damage if I'm not careful. So a lot of safety sparks happening here. But it's all very necessary and doesn't slow me down, which is the important part. We get a damage boost here to get up to the shelf early, and with the invincibility frames from that, we're able to hit the firework chest. That's why I wanted to have the extra sparks, is in case those iframes ran out. But so far all is going according to plan, and maybe with a little shaky movement we make it to this next dragon. I grabbed that red gem early as I touched the dragon, because if you don't and then the mushroom turns you around, you can just charge off the ledge, and because that red gem is touching the pedestal, your game will literally fucking soft lock. I'm not even kidding. So yeah, shoutouts to Laura for figuring that one out. On my previous record, I hit these enemies with Supercharge, but now I take the time to hit them early because the new Supercharge saves it that much time. And even though I flubbed that red guy a little bit, it actually didn't matter because I have to stand and wait up top here for the big guy to float up anyways as a result of this movement. I actually have an alternate strategy that I didn't do here, which is barely tenths of a second faster, where you like land on a shelf and do a turnaround kill on the big guy. It's pretty cool. Hopefully I get that in my next record. But now we're coming up to the big part, the Supercharge. And even though I know what happens, I'm still nervous watching this. Like an hour of gameplay comes down to this moment. I jump on the ramp, turn around, supercharge, barely make it to the gems, jump again, jump away with enough height to make it to these fan chests, and then bump off of that little curb right there, which is basically a 50-50 coin flip, whether you get enough height from that or not. And now we've saved 10 seconds in the routing of Turkey Island here by, again, using the curb that I was running on there to bounce up and get extra height, avoiding having to collect the grandma fairies to raise you up. It's a really cool supercharge and an amazing route that it even exists or works at all. But man, any one of those little jumps that I do during this supercharge, not even just the bump, has the potential to just straight up kill me and end my run. And so many runs before this one have died to that. So you can see why I didn't go for it on the previous record. I mean, it is such a Hail Mary YOLO of a fucking strat, and when it goes well, that gets the fucking adrenaline pumping. Let me tell you, man, like when you hit a strat like that on world record pace, you're like over the moon. Your blood, and you got to keep playing here. Like, look at me, I'm still going here. I'm cleaning up all the freaking red gem chests and everything. Like, I'm not done playing. So it just amps you up and gets you energized like no amount of energy drinks ever could. I mean, just look at that gold split right there, bringing back a 13-second deficit right back to dead even with world record, minus 0.1. That's the shit that dreams are made out of, everybody, and we are now officially on the home stretch of this run with the final gauntlet of difficult levels standing in my way. I mean, if I wasn't feeling the pressure before, I am definitely feeling it now, and what I want to do at this point is show my face live from the run on screen, just so you guys can get an idea of how hard I had to lock in on these few levels, and hopefully you guys can just feel the intensity through the screen. I gotta say, I played very strong in this jock. Like, you can see I'm pushing the movement here and just not afraid to flame shit and do it as quickly as possible, using that upward momentum from the single cake and hitting this very precise glide right here, putting my chin up to make sure I get that extra height IRL in the game. Like, I'm just fucking booking it right now. It's nothing particularly ridiculous or amazing, but like I said, you can just feel the intensity through the screen at this point. I really, not only am I trying not to fuck up, I'm trying to like make this good. I've like officially ascended past the point of like, oh, I'm nervous or I need to play it safe. I'm just like, I'm gonna do the fucking thing I've learned and just send it. And this level is just a beautiful like celebration, I don't know, of just sending it in this game. Well, after the jock fight, I make my way back to the stairs, where notably we collected the dragon early. Similarly to earlier, it just isn't faster to grab it later. But here you can see I'm really starting to flame charge like a fucking madman. Like I said, just no fear on these flames. And I'm catching all of these awkward gem collections as just smoothly as a human can ever hope to do it. Again, I'm not saying that this gameplay is like community gold level or anything, but it's about as clean as you could ever hope to do it, let alone on a world record pace. So yeah, it's just solid, perfectly walking around the front of this dragon as I touch it, getting ready to flame charge this box and then move up to the wind tunnel here. Those wind tunnel platforms are actually tricky because it's faster to jump on the side and then jump up into them to preserve upward momentum, which I basically nailed on all of them in this level. Just another showing of confidence with the movement. We have a scary wall glide here, which I of course barely get, before cleaning up the gems and gliding to the final spot of the level where I go for a very tricky triple chest to finish it off. This is how I want to play every level of the run. With this level of focus and intensity and like drive and resolve, confidence to just push the movement and just do shit clean. And even if you fuck up, just recover it and keep it moving, you know? Like, that's the shit that dreams and world records and all that bullshit are made out of, you know? It's just having that perfect zen fucking focus in the moment. I can't describe it. It's a level of intensity that's like unmatched. It's like being one with the universe or some shit. But of course, life is funny because we can't be that intense in every moment. Not for a 5-hour stream straight. I'm gonna give myself a goddamn hernia doing that. No, the reality is there's peaks and troughs in my focus and my intensity that, you know, now that I'm in the midst of the pressure of world record, sure, it's easy to focus now, or at least if you're not too nervous, but it's those moments where I'm 2 hours into stream and I haven't gotten a run going yet that I need to find this energy. Because if I can find this within me in my most tedious trials of speedrunning and grinding, then really I think I'm capable of overcoming anything at that point. But enough of this philosophical shit. Let's talk about this jump up to the bridge here in Cove, which I just barely make, and I'm still pushing the movement all the way up to these chests. Like, the flames are coming out like frame perfectly before each of my charges out of the air. It's just zero hesitation. And I know I keep saying this, I'm like gassing myself up like from the past or whatever, but I mean, I can't underline enough how much of a change of playstyle has happened since Lofty. But yeah, here I can't be too hasty. I have to slow down for this little TNT charge to blow up all those gems from the strongbox. I remember time kind of slowed down for me there because I knew I had to not speed up too hard. If you do that too quickly, you fail it. So that was like one of those weird like time slow down. When you have a lot of adrenaline, time like kind of speeds up and slows down. That particular trick, time slowed down for me, I remember. Just to press square at the exact right moment. Like, I felt it through my whole, like, body, you know? It's really funny stuff. But anyways, we're catching all the right cycles here, and we're moving on to just cleaning up the rest of these enemies. This next section, you have to be very precise in how you kill the enemies. Otherwise, you end up leaving gems and not having them home in. And in fact, I was actually kind of unsure when I did the quadruple kill here, whether I got everything. But, you know, at this point, I just had to trust in it, you know. Trust the process, trust in myself. I didn't really have room to second guess shit. So I was like, fuck it, keep it going. And of course, it was all fine, but in a section like this, you're always thinking, especially on good runs, okay, did I leave that gem? Did I leave that gem? Did I leave that gem? And that you can kind of psych yourself out like that at a part like this. You know, you're not going to visually confirm every single gem here, so you have to trust in your movement, have the confidence to just keep it moving without going too fast. Trust the process. And trust the process we did. We managed to get out of this level lickety-split without losing any time at all. Now, on world record paces recently, this level has been kind of a bit of a thorn in my side. There's very easy spots for you to lose or save 2 or 3 seconds, especially on the supercharged section, and I just tend to get the short end of the stick here when it comes to good runs. So let's see what happens. I managed to move quickly enough to catch this grenade guy before he blows me up, before getting up to the next area where I'm doing a good job navigating these corners and keeping the charging pretty consistent up into this next room where I unfortunately missed the double spring chest. It looks like I should have had it, but I was just pixels away from that first one. Easy recovery, we keep it moving, but hopefully there isn't any bad implications on the enemy cycles in this next coming area, of which there's a lot of Doritos being shot at me, I'll put it that way. We make our way into this room with some very nice gem collection. Unfortunately, I am hit by the grenade from this guy, which is in no small part thanks to the missed spring chest earlier, just putting me a little bit far back on his cycle, but you know, these are small time losses and we keep it moving. It's really nothing more than 2 or 3 seconds at this point. Now here comes a really big supercharge that I came up with earlier that extends all the way from the top to the bottom back to the top area again. So let's see how that goes here, and there's a lot of opportunities to get fucked over by enemies, by the way, or little slight gem losses. So let's see if any of those decide to troll me here. Well, I do the double turnaround here for the strong chest, which is actually ideal, and then we manage to avoid this guy shooting me before getting bounced up to the upper area, doing a little bump off the top of the ramp. That was all pretty much perfect, except for the end of this area here. I quite didn't get that yellow gem right there on the island, so had to burn like 3-4 seconds to go grab that, but besides that, really good supercharged section there. Now we just clean up the last part of the level here, rerouting this room to do the Tainu strat where we can save a second or two by flame charging some of these enemies. Then, after a double spring chest, we carefully flame charge this enemy so that we don't get shot by the one behind him, and just avoid the little Doritos and hit the flame charges before finally making it over to the vortex and carefully grabbing all of the gems there before exiting. And that's Twilight Harbor. You can see me periodically glancing over at my chat to see a flurry of hype messages and just illegible craziness from, hundreds of viewers just hyping me up right now. And as I enter Nasty Nork, I quote a video that the Rixer made about me when I entered this level on world record pace. He says, when he's going into Nasty Nork, he only has one thing on his mind. Don't miss credit skip. And you know what? He's right. So what is credit skip? Well, in this game, when you kill the final boss, the credits play. But unfortunately, we have to complete more things after the final boss. So in order to skip the credits, we're going to bounce off of the final boss and kill him from out of bounds, so that way we can fly into the lava as we kill him, with our death abuse interrupting the credits. It's truly an ingenious strategy, and barely works such that we can grab all of his gems and exit the level with 0 lives using a game over to take us directly back to the home world, right on track for the next dragon and Nasty's loot. So that's credit skip in a nutshell, and don't worry, I'll explain it again in case you missed any of that once we get to it, but for now, let's just enjoy the obstacle course, and also shoutouts to that awkward gem check I did earlier in the level. Let's just say we're not setting any new community golds with this particular segment. We wanted Nasty to push us into the room here, but it's okay that he didn't. It's hardly a time loss. Now the final stretch of the level. I've actually bonked on these platforms on world record pace before. It was soul crushing. Now here's credit skip. I set up in a very specific spot where I could damage abuse to set up a very specific proxy that bounces me through the roof and allows me to glide out of bounds and slow down to flame him from underneath while pointing up and death abusing. This collects Nasty's gems while interrupting the credits with a game over. That game over is going to take us right back to the homeworld, exactly where we want to be to finish the route. I mean, does that not just work out perfectly or what? Like, that trick is just a miracle. And it isn't new or anything. World records have been doing that trick since 2014, which again shows just how far the players had to go in their general movement optimization. Not the tricks, not the strats, but just the general level of execution to improve the run by dozens of minutes since then. It's remarkable. And now here we are in Nasty's Loot in 2024, a full year and a half after the last record has been set, with many small reroutes being made in this level alone. Let's see how it pans out, and spoilers, it doesn't go quite according to plan. But for now, it's smooth sailing. We hit the early rocket, which is very nice, allowing us to actually go for a micro reroute, which I'm going to come to regret here in a moment. I'm skipping over some of the gems to the right here to grab this plane early using a turnaround strategy. Let's see how that works. No. My heart sank when I missed that plane, and I barely made it in time just to hit him before he already lost me about 5 seconds at least. At this point, I didn't know if I was actually even going to get record or not anymore, but let's continue. I managed to catch the second plane, thank God. I really could have crumbled there, and I think many players would have. And now I have to collect those gems that I missed, awkwardly flying back up to the first rocket and getting all fucking turned around here. My heart sank when I slipped off that ledge. I'm really thinking it might be over at this point. My last shot is to hit the 2-vol strat down here, and just please don't fuck anything else up, please. If I fuck up one more thing, it is definitely over. But at least I managed to hit that quick fly back up here, and I'm able to clean up the rest of these gems relatively decently. I mean, I've missed some of those gems on runs before, so I mean, at least I did that. Now I'm in the treasure room just cleaning it all up like normal, and man, I don't know what to feel right now. This could be the 3rd run that has died in loot this week, and I could be out again. But no, not this time. Not again. I finally broke through. I felt so vindicated, especially after such an awful loot. I'm just losing my mind on the camera right now. And by the way, if you want to see the full pop-off, do check out the Raw stream VOD linked down below. But let me just give some closing thoughts here for this run. I played so well, but there is so much room for improvement. In fact, execution-wise, my old world record is technically faster if you take out Nestor Skip. So, really, I just think this is the tip of the iceberg, everybody. A run like this gets the confidence boosted. It gets the cockles warmed in my heart to keep grinding this game and see if we can not only get into the low 120, but maybe even go for sub 120. And if we ever get there one day, I think we're going to look back on this moment and see it as the true beginning of something special, or maybe the beginning of the end. Hey, if you enjoyed this commentary, leave a comment down below and let me know. Hit the subscribe button and follow the stream, because this grind is just getting started, baby, and I would be nothing without you. So I want to say thank you again for watching, and have a beautiful day. Keep on playing video games, keep on Spyroing, and just keep on being the best gamer and person that you can be. And with that, my name's Dayoman, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Damn.